My name is Maybelle Estelle. It's French. And I'm here today to tell you about the effects of television on the mind of children. Now, back in the 50's and 60's, they didn't know that television was going to affect the minds of children, but they done learned later that it does. Well, anyway, let me tell you about some of the TV shows in the 50's and 60's. Now, I was a little kid in the 60's. I was born in the late 50's. I'll tell you about that some other time. But anyway, I grew up on the children's programming, and they had Romper Room. Now, Romper Room was a great little TV show for children. Now, I don't remember a whole lot about Romper Room because I was little. But they had this one thing on Romper Room. If you was good, they called you a good doobie. Now, doobie came to have another whole meaning back in the 70's. But back then, if you was a good doobie, that meant you'd been doing good things. You know, like around your house and helping your mama and everything. Well, anyway, they had that. And then they had this other show called Howdy Doody. Now, to me, Howdy Doody was a creepy little puppet. He had these red hair and these freaking little freckles all over his face, and his eyes didn't quite focus. Now wait a minute, red hair and freckles, that ain't so bad, but them eyes that don't quite focus, them was creepy little eyes. Now I don't hardly remember too much about that neither, because I was kind of little, but all I remember is Howdy Doody was creepy. And then they had Captain Kangaroo. Now, Captain Kangaroo, I loved him. He was great. He had this big old jacket with the big old pockets, and he had the dancing bear, and he had them ping pong balls that fall all down everywhere. You remember that? Now, I was a little kid, right? And I was wondering, who picks up all them daggum ping pong balls every time? I thought that must have been a terrible job when I was a little kid to be the person have to pick up all them ping pong balls. Well, anyway, that was children's programming, and that was okay. That was fine. But then they had other television that was what we would call now for grown-ups. We had the Twilight Zone and Alfred Hitchcock and Peyton Place. Now, them's TV shows was not for children. Now, you wonder why I bit my fingernails down to the nubs. I'd be watching Twilight Zone. Now, to this very day, I am a grown woman, and I still hear, if I hear this melody, it sends shivers up my spine. I'd be sitting in bed, biting my fingernails, and biting my fingernails, and Papa Dewdrop from the other room, he'd say, "Maybelle, quit biting your fingernails." And I'd say, "But I'm scared, Daddy." He says, "What you got to be scared of? Ain't nothing scary." I said, "I done watched Twilight Zone." And he'd probably just roll his eyes or roll over or something. I was scared to death. Something's gonna come out from underneath my bed and get me. So I was all huddled up in the middle of my bed with my covers all covered up around me, and sweating. It'd be in the middle of summer, and I'd be under my covers, scared to death. Now, that had an effect on my mind as a child. As you can see, it has affected me. Now, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, they had old Alfred Hitchcock, and he had a scary show that has twisted the minds of many, many children. And he would come out all profiled and everything. Dun, da, 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 da. Anyway, there weren't nothing on Alfred Hitchcock that children ought to be watching. And these was the television shows that I grew up on. Now, we did have Beverly Hillbillies and Petticoat Junction and Green Acres and Andy Griffith. Them's was the good kind of shows that children could watch. Now, I just had the opportunity to see an old Andy Griffith show. It was in black and white. That's all we had back then. It was pretty good, still to this day, but I'll have to tell you about that some other time. Now, I'm just here to talk about some old TV shows that affects the minds of children, and next time I'll talk to you about some of the shows we have today that are shaping the minds of our children. But I'll have to talk about that some other time. Thank you very much and have a nice day.